Euporia is my favorite holy weapon, and will likely be yours too. It is a legendary armament that ticks every box. This twin blade is difficult to get, but worth the journey to find it. With a unique mechanic and striking the balance between being great and not overpowered, it's no wonder Euporia is quickly becoming a fan favorite. Euporia is one of the trickiest weapons to find in the game. I admittedly would not have found this weapon when I did, without the help from a member of the community. Start at the second sight of grace in Anir Alim, that being the spiral rise, and jump down to the ledges on screen, starting from that broken railing. After vaulting past a few massive drops, you'll find yourself a shiny new weapon guarded by a divine beast warrior waiting for you at the end. Using the moveset, we can see the unique mechanic we'll have throughout this run. The standard twin blade attacks come with what the weapon describes as luster. Attacking an enemy increases this luster charge, which is indicated by the golden glow on the weapon. One enemy exception to this is those who live in death will not buff the weapon with luster on attack. None of the bosses I fought in this run fit in this category, and these enemies are already weak to holy damage, so I don't see much of an issue here. As for everything else, the greater the luster, the greater the glow and holy damage. Higher luster also changes the way our Ash of War works. Euporia Vortex. If you've seen Euporia in action before, it's likely because of the Ash of War. Without luster, the Ash is a multi-hit twirl that damages anything immediately in front of the player. However, using it with luster adds a holy beam attack to the weapon. The more luster you have when you use the Ash of War, the stronger the Vortex is, damage and duration-wise. This Vortex can deal an insane amount of damage when timed and built around correctly. I surpassed over 10k damage on a few occasions, and would easily deal several thousand damage, even at range. There is only one incantation I used on this run. Golden Vow is once again a great option. It provides us with 15% higher damage and 10% higher damage negation. But this is not the only buff I used outside of my tier setup. The Ash of War on the Sword of Light increases all holy damage for a full minute. Said buff also just happens to be compatible with Golden Vow. And unlike Howl of Shabriri, we don't have to worry about any drop in our damage negation, keeping us tanky and aggressive during the boss fights. Even if we wanted to stack both of them, Howl and Light do not stack with each other, as they're both aura buffs. The optimal playstyle for Euporia is nearly perfect. The more you attack, the more luster you gain. Higher luster means higher damage with your moveset and Ash of War. Be sure to adjust your playstyle accordingly, as there's two ways in a fight that you'll lose your luster. The first is by expelling all that luster through a charged up Ash of War. The second is by waiting too long to attack your enemy again. Luster buildup will slowly fade over time after not hitting your enemy for a while. This encourages you to stay aggressive, since aggressive combat means better damage per hit. Luster and the Elden Ring poise mechanic in tandem makes this one of the most satisfying weapons to use in game. Unlike something like the Blasphemous Blade or the Mogwin Sacred Spear, you can't just adopt a lackadaisical approach by sitting back and using that Ash of War. Euporia Vortex won't do anything for you if you just sit at range and spam it. Euporia rewards you for being good at the game by increasing your power for each hit you land. Now, before we jump into the tiers and talismans, a quick thanks to everyone that subscribed and joined the TheJerseySide. Our next 1,000 sub milestone of 3k is almost here. We want to equip the two-headed turtle talisman to increase our stamina regen. This will be a very stamina-hungry build. We also should use the Rotten Wing Sword Insignia, Millicent's Prosthesis, and the Thorny Crack tier. These all work together to stack up our successive attack damage. To increase the power of Euporia Vortex even further, I had the Shard of Alexander and the Holy Shroud and Cracked tier. One adjustment that I may have made would be replacing Shard of Alexander with a two-handed sword talisman. Some bosses, mostly in the DLC, don't leave much room to shoot out a full vortex, especially on this New Game Plus 6 cycle I was playing on. The final boss also does not take Euporia Vortex very well. Both Radagon and the Elden Beast have 80% holy resist, and Radagon can parry the Ash of War, so do be careful of that. Our stats at RO 170 were 60 Vigor, 26 Mind to use our Incantation and Ashes of War, 35 Endurance, 16 Strength, 16 Dexterity that will be increased to 21 with the use of Millicent's Prosthesis, and 80 Faith, since this is what our holy damage scales off of. Euporia quickly catapulted itself into being a top 10 favorite weapon of mine. With this build, I'm sure it'll become one of your favorites also.